And it's Tuesday evening, live on eTV, live on Facebook, live on Twitter and Instagram as well. Tonight, we welcome you to the show. This is Fact Sheet. Here, we don't mince words. We say it as it is, and we discuss the issues pertaining to the well-being of our nation, Ghana, with facts at the core of our deliberations. My name is Samuel Shen, and tonight, we're here to think about Ghana. We are thinking about Ghana and we are thinking about our environment. By thinking about our environment, we are talking about our water bodies. We are talking about our vegetation cover. We are talking about the soil. We are talking about the degradation of our forests and how, as a nation, we are concerned about the activities of miners, small-scale miners, popularly known as galamseyers. The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources a few weeks ago held a forum where stakeholders gathered to think about how to stop the galamsey activities in our various forest reserves and vegetations. And this conversation at the end of the day led to the minister issuing a directive to all miners who are prospecting and doing reconnaissance studies about areas where they are working. There have been several talks about how we can clamp down on these galamseyers. We all know what has happened in the past. The efforts to clamp down on them that virtually proved futile. What different can we do to stop galamsey in our country? But even as we talk about galamsey, a lot of us assume we understand what goes into surface mining or alluvial mining. We think we know what goes into it, but do we really understand what goes into it? Tonight, my guest will help me to understand what we mean when we say surface mining, alluvial mining, galamsey, how the water bodies are being polluted and destroyed, how our farmers are losing their cocoa farms and forests. How does galamsey work? What's the network? What's the relationship that exists between the excavator renters, the people who design the washing plants, and the buyers? Tonight, we seek to understand the workings of the small-scale miners. That's our focus tonight on Fact Sheet. My name once again is Samuel Shen, and I welcome you to the conversation. We'll be right back. And you're welcome back. Once again, this is Fact Sheet. My name is Samuel Shen. My guests are here with me for us to deliberate on the issue of mining from the perspective of the stakeholders as to what necessarily small-scale mining and surface mining is all about. Tonight, I'll be helped by my guests, Madam Hannah Owusu-Kranten. She's the Associate Executive Director for WACAM, and Mr. Godwin Ama, who is General Secretary, Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners. He'll be joining us via Zoom tonight. And so would Mr. Elvis Opon-Mensah, who is a Program Officer for Service Response, also join us via Zoom tonight for us to have the conversation. But Madam Hannah Kranten is in the studio with me for us to begin the conversation. Madam, good evening.
Good evening.
I trust you're doing well tonight.
I'm good.
All right.
Sorry.
So I'll begin the conversation with you because you know you are very much experienced when it comes to mining in the country, and your advocacy when it comes to the preservation of environment. If we talk about surface mining, if we talk about small-scale mining, from your perspective, what does it constitute?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your all your listeners. Well, if we talk about surface mining, it's just a simple method of scraping the earth of its nutrients, of its biodiversity, going deep into the earth crust, crashing everything to the point where you can even reach the groundwater table. And once you extract this soil, you have to put some chemicals on that to extract the ore, and then the rest is considered as waste material. And so you require some area to dump the waste, and not just the solid waste, but also the liquid waste, because once you're extracting and you add the chemicals, the effluents that comes out of that also needs to be stored. So you find a receptacle to store that, and then you gather your gold and you sell. And so that's it. In the process, you recognize that water bodies are polluted. If you talk about surface mining, it requires a lot of water. And so if you look through the Minerals and Mining Act 703, 2006, it says that in section 17 that if you acquire a concession and then you have some talks with the Water Resource Commission and other relevant bodies, you have the right to impound, convey, divert surface water, any available water for the purposes of mining. And it tells you the amount of water that surface mining requires. And so if you go to some of the places, rivers are named, some pits are named after rivers. For instance, if you go to the Kenyasi area, we have Subika, we have Awunsu. These are pits, and Subika is a river. Awunsu was a river. Awunsu was a river. So it tells you that you require a lot of water.
You use the word was.
Yes.
Is it to suggest they don't exist anymore?
Even if they exist, the integrity of the water is lost. You see, if you're talking about water, then you should not have an odor. The turbidity should be clear. It should not have any smell, and it should not have any taste and things like that. So the moment you start mining operations around water, the water will lose its integrity. And that's why I'm referring to it as was.
Was.
Okay. And so we have, again,
But sorry, in the case of Kenya that you referenced, is it the activities of small-scale miners, or it's a major multinational company that is mining there?
You are talking about surface mining, and surface mining is not an activity carried out by small-scale miners alone.
Okay.
And so we have the corporate entities involved in surface mining. So there was a time when I said that mining companies in Ghana, both small and large, are all involved in galamsey because they all gather and sell. That's the literal meaning of galamsey. So it's not a problem of small-scale miners alone. It's a problem of surface mining.
So why has there been a focus on small-scale miners, and then the major or the big mining firms are virtually left out of the conversation when we are talking about the degradation of our environment and then the pollution of our water bodies? It's
something that I can't understand, because everybody who, I'm not a miner, but at least I understand a bit of it because of the work that I've been doing for so many years. Everybody who understands the operations of surface mining knows that the Earth's surface, the vegetative material surface, habitats are destroyed to the extent that even the graveyards are destroyed in the process. And gulls are moved to pave the way for mining. So surface mining in general has a problem of degradation, and this is not something that WACAM is saying or any environmental group in Ghana is saying, but these are documented facts globally, that wherever you have surface mining, you have all these problems associated with surface mining, including the acid mine drainage, because once you dump the rock waste on fertile lands, you expose heavy metals that were buried in the earth crust. And so once you have leaching and from water, the rainfall, and also the temperature and things like that, you trigger acid formation, which also leads into clean environments and then further destroy or pollute the environment. So surface mining is the problem. Now, when people talk about small-scale mining and then equate that to galamsey, the challenge is that some people acquire the licenses for small-scale purposes, and then when they recognize that they are not breaking even, because a lot of people are drifting into that activity, they keep shifting from the areas that they were demarcated and they have to mine. So they keep shifting from place to place. And so though they have acquired a license to mine, some of their activities become illegal activities. And these people can drift into pristine environments as well as the other forests, the secondary and then the productive forests and so on. And so surface mining is a problem. And some corporate entities that acquired the license, who are supposed to be regulated by state agencies, also engage in illegal activities. For instance, if you acquire a license to mine, it doesn't give you the right to harass communities and to the extent of shooting community people, maiming them. Some of them die out of some of these atrocities. Guard dogs released on human beings to eat them up and things like that. And we've had these experiences in Ghana. And as we speak today, there are corporate entities mining in protected forests. There are corporate entities that had mined in protected forests. Exploratory work is ongoing in some protected forests as well as the production forests. So surface mining is the problem, and the dealings of surface miners cannot, if allowed to continue like this, cannot help the country to conserve our environment.
All right, I'll come back to you with a question about, surface mining and how the multinationals are doing the same surface mining, and yet I'll come back to you with that question. I'll hold on to that question and then come back to you. But let me speak to Godwin. They are an association of small-scale miners, and they are into the business of, alluvial mining and, surface mining. Godwin, good evening once again. All right, so we are trying to understand the workings of your business. When we say small-scale miners, who are you? What do you do?
Law, that's the Minerals and Mining Act, is defined in Ghana by the lease, the size of your lease, which should not be more than 25 acres. You should be a Ghanaian, you should be 18 years, over 18 years, and of sane mind before you can engage in small-scale mining. Licenses that are issued are site-specific. That means the coordinates are given, you can only work in that coordinate. You cannot shift to away from those coordinates. That's why we say it's site-specific. And before I go on, you mentioned that small-scale mining is popularly known as galamsey. There's a clear difference between small-scale mining and then galamsey operations. So it's not, small-scale mining is not galamsey. Then when we talk about surface mining, small-scale mining, we have what we do, the hard rock, which we go underground, where you see people sinking pits, going and bringing the rock out and then grinding them and extracting or liberating the gold from the ore body. Then when you come to the alluvia, we have the alluvia and the colluvia. Alluvia is where you open the belly of the earth and then you get to the ore body, you bring it out and you process. These are mainly by gravity, where you use scrubbers and then you add water and then you process. Then we have the colluvia, which what we popularly call the dig and wash, where you dig, you grind them in your hammer mills and then sluice them on board, or you can use other form of concentrators to ensure that you separate them. You separate the gold from the waste, and then the waste are stored in another place. So mainly this is how our operation is. If you look at what Mom said, Wakam, that this acid drains and all that, it has nothing to do with the small scale miners. Surface mining can also be done by multinational companies. And when you are engaged in surface mining, you go through your EIA, you do the environmental impact assessment and all that is done. And you put your mitigating this thing in place before EPA permits you to go in for the same way it happens with the small scale mining sector. You also put your plan in place and then EPA will permit you based on the type of operations that you are going to undertake. In the small scale mining sector, because our operation is by size, it never said anything in terms of your mechanization. So within the small scale sector, we have categorized it into three. We have those who are engaged in the fully mechanized operations. Those who are using excavators, they are using their washer plants, they are using the concentrators. And you know, the characteristics, most of the people who are engaged in these activities are mainly entrepreneurs. And you have highly skilled people working within that kind of operations. When you come to the semi-mechanized operation, where you have excavators, people going underground with their blowers and all that, it's semi-mechanized. So you see some excavators, then the pits are open, and then you have a lot of manpower, people sluicing on board or using what which you carry along. Mainly, you have about between 1,000 and over people in semi-mechanized operation settings, which creates a lot of jobs. Then you come to the artisanal mining operation. Now we don't see artisanal mining operation because most of the top gravels or where the top, at the top, those days you can get the minerals at the top. So people can use dig and wash method. They use their head pumps and all that to get. And mainly they are in group of 4 farmers who maybe during the dry season, they also go in. And these are groups that their environmental impacts footprints are not that much. During the next rainy season, if they have some pits can be covered. So that is the kind of operations that we have in the system. But every mining activity that you take, in terms of the operation, if it's done properly, you will be able to reclaim the land and we can farm on the land. We have areas that miners have reclaimed lands and within 6 months or even 3 months, crops are being planted. And you can still have it.
But the point you made about, you know, the mechanized mining you are doing and the introduction of technology into what you're doing. Now, if you are using excavators, give me the education. Is it that you also do the prospecting? Because I have seen a couple of documentaries where miners use a lot of technology, metal detectors, to ensure they know the area where they are going to mine and that there are metals, maybe gold or whatever it is you're looking for, that the indicators are that they can mine and get the gold in that area. What sort of technology do you use as small-scale miners?
The Brain River and Kubra and all that. That's traditionally, and then the Ofin, you know, the alluvial places, you have where the veins are, and during raining seasons, it's washed and then it's deposited over years. So some of these areas, our forefathers have worked there. You know, Ghana, we started many way back. If you look at the historical context over the 5th and then the 4th centuries, we've done the mining before the Europeans came. So there are old workings that we've seen that you'll be able to identify that these places, they are deposits, but you need to sink some pits. So we do our prospecting. You know, those who do the fully mechanized operations engage qualified geologists to do it because it's more of business, you understand? So they do the prospecting and then they know the values there and then they model their mine based on the reserve that they have in the resource. But if you look at those who are doing the semi-mechanized way, they use local local intelligence because they know we've worked, some people have worked here, there are artisanal old pits there. So those are the traces that they follow and they will sink 1 or 2 pits and then they know that there is gold here, but the quantity may differ and based on price, gold price at the end of the day, areas that you think may not be good today may be good tomorrow. So these are the ways that most of we go on with the prospecting to be able to ascertain when you have. When you go underground, they also sink and intercept the rock. Based on that, they break some of the rock, bring it up, process it, and see the gold quantity in there in terms of they do, we call it the local prospecting, and then they use the tie to check and see and find some traces of gold in there. And by experience, I tell you, most of the miners, by experience, they know that this value is good or not before they start the operation. But you know, gold deposits, especially with alluvia, are very erratic. And also the ore deposits are deep-seated. If I talk about it being deep-seated, some are, you can't, the gravels are around 3 meters, 5 meters. You get to Ankobra areas, downstream around Tukum areas. Some are about 12 meters before you get to the gravel where you can get the gold. That's the ore body. So you need these mechanical shovels to be able to dig, bring them out and do your sluicing or using your watch plan before you can concentrate and get your goal. So that is why. But our laws, as it is in the Minerals and Mining Act, if you look at the Article 83, it says you should use effective and efficient way in mining. Efficiency can only come when you have proper technology, when you have people who understand what they are doing to ensure that they maximize the profits, and also work in tandem with the environment and ensure that there's environmental safety and then working safety issues in there.
Right.
So these are.
Robin, let me ask a quick one before I come to Elvis for comments on the processes you have outlined for us. So, at what point does the pollution of the water come in? At what point do you get water into these pits that you have, opened? And what are the processes of ensuring that this water you have used in the semi-mechanized system, before it returns into the river or into the stream, is purified before it gets into the stream? What are the processes?
Washing directly into water bodies. Most of the water pollution we've seen now is as a result of the using of the dredgers, which is a Chinese technology that most of the miners, because it's cheap, it's cheaper to operate a dredger. You need only 4 people. You need about 12,000 Ghana cedis, and you get your chamfer machine ready on the river, where you don't pay compensation, you don't do anything, just dredging. So that is where they dredge the river beds. And then you watch the shoulders of the river. Once they dig under, it caves in, it breaks, and then the topsoil and everything goes in and increases the turbidity. But when you come to alluvia, our operations, what we do is we have recycling ponds, where the water that you pump in, you recycle it. So you only introduce water into it when maybe there is evaporation and all that, and your water are gone in. And you have your slime that you have where we have a slime pond. You take all your slime into those ponds, and then you continue to recycle. In that case, you don't pollute the river. But some of the miners are not doing it. Some are washing and they discharge directly. Because by the EPA, we need to check, once you get to the water resource and all that, you check every quarterly. You should check we have what we call the river. I just want the water, we send it to a standard board or sometimes waterways for them to check the turbidity and all that before you can discharge into the river bodies. So as people are saying, it's like anytime you are doing alluvial mining, then it's all about pollution. It's just one narrative that the moment they hear of small scale mining, then the narrative have been one. It's all about pollution, but that is always not the case. You have a lot of small scale miners that are following the processes and the procedure to ensure that we don't pollute water bodies. And that is what we do. So the recycle points are there. When it comes to underground, those who are going underground, most of it, because the quantity of water they normally use is very limited, because they bring the rock out, they dry it, they go through the mill, crush and mill it, and use it. So those who don't go underground don't have much of a problem in terms of the quantity of water that they use. But with those who are doing the alluvia, you need a lot of water to do the process. And using the right process.
All right, let me speak to Elvis and thoughts on the processes you have outlined, because the essence of our conversation tonight is to make people appreciate the work that you do. We talk about galamseyers, we talk about small scale mining, we talk about surface mining. They are words we mentioned, but as to what really goes on at the mining side, the processes that go on, which makes us see what we see on the surfaces, the polluted water, the trees, the tree felling, and the pits we see at various places. Sometimes people losing their lives as a result of these pits. Elvis, you do a lot of work in terms of ensuring that these problems that we are talking about, we don't see them. The processes that Godwin outlined for us, is that what pertains at these mining sites?
Thank you, Samuel. Let me take this opportunity to greet my brother Godwin and my mom, Auntie Hannah. I like how you started the introduction when you were starting this program. You said we say it as it is. But the truth is, Godwin has outlined how the law says it should be. But the question is, if We have practiced what we see the law asks us to do. We have been complaining about our water bodies and our forests, and the president would have announced ban about 3 times on stopping small-scale mining and galamsey altogether. So it tells us there's a problem. It tells us what we have outlined this evening is actually not what is happening on the ground. If you remember, around 15th December 2018, the then Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng announced that Ghana will need about $29 billion to reclaim all the land that we have lost through surface mining. And he estimated that Ghana have lost about 10% of our total land marks through this surface mining. So it tells you there's a big problem. It tells you we are not actually doing what we are supposed to do. The problem around the mining sector has always been around surface mining. For me, whether it's small scale or whether it's the big companies, the issue has been around small scale mining. If you remember very well in our history, when we started gold mining somewhere in Obuasi in a commercial quantity, and we're doing deep mining, we're not complaining today. We're not complaining the kind of the complaints that we have today. It's when we started losing our laws and we introduced surface mining in the context. Then small scale mining came in, the big companies also started doing their own thing. So, surface mining simply means scratching the surface and look for your gold. And it's actually the surface that's where you have the forest vegetation. It's the surface that's where you have agricultural land. So one that you scratch the surface, you are losing your forest vegetation. One that you scratch the surface, you are losing the agricultural land. So for me, as always, maybe the question that we need to ask ourselves is, let's compare agriculture and mining. The cost benefit analysis of the two, and see which of them give the country the kind of revenue that we need. If you remember, just recently that Cocoa Board was asked to come under the Minister of Agriculture. It used to be under Minister of Finance. Have we asked ourselves why do we think agricultural product comes under an agency looking at agricultural product comes under Minister of Finance? It tells you the kind of revenue that Cocoa Board was bringing to Ghana. So Minister of Finance need to take oversight responsibility. So you can imagine now we have mining destroying this agricultural product. It tells you Ghana where we are heading to. If you remember, anytime our CD is going down, anytime that the country is in need of money, what do we look at? We don't look at gold. We look at cocoa syndicate loan. This is the land that is competing with surface mining. This is the land which is competing with this kind of things that we are seeing. And I think my brother Gordon mentioned the issue about reclaiming the land. We can do the surface mine, after that we can reclaim the land. I remember last 2 years, we were in a meeting in Kumasi with EPA. We're developing a guideline on how to mine in forest reserve. And it was clear, the EPA said that there was no way you can reclaim a land to get it to its original status. And it's a fact, it's not possible. And they have been saying that when you reclaim the land, you can use it for agricultural purposes. It's dangerous because you have mixed the soil with chemicals. You have mixed the soil with mercury, and you are going to plant foodstuffs to bring it to the market. Even when you have not even reclaimed the land and people are doing this surface mining, they are applying mercuries. We have heard of other countries trying to ban Ghana cocoa because of these mercuries and other things. We have heard.
Albert, let me put you for a second. An angle about reclamation and the fact that we will not get the, let me use for want of a better word, the fidelity of the land back, because of the chemicals that would be in there. Now, these chemicals, what are they? What are they used for at the mining site? Because the essence of our conversation is to paint the picture as to what happens on the ground at a mining site. These chemicals, what are they? What are they used for? Where do we get them from?
No, so normally they use mercury. So when you dig the gold, you need the mercury to polish it up to get the core of the gold from the rock or the soil that you are digging. So they use the mercury to polish the gold to get to polish the soil or the core to get the gold from it. So that's what they use the mercury for. And normally the mercury with water. So the mercury is now mixed with the soil. That's the point. So once that the mercury is mixed with the soil, that soil becomes poisonous. It will take so many years. At best, what we can use that soil for is for tree plantation. If you use it for any other food crops, it's poisonous and it's dangerous. And it's also costly. It's costly. You can imagine that Ghana need about $29 billion to do the reclamation that we are talking about. So for me, what we need to look at as a country is let's try and do cost-benefit analysis of surface mining as compared to using the land for agricultural purposes. If it has been deep mining, as we used to do in Obuasi, you can dig down and get your gold, then you still have the surface for the agricultural purposes. And like our brother Godwin said, those who do the deep mining and those who do the alluvial, when they dig down, they normally don't even use much water. So they don't even do much pollution to our water bodies and other things. But because it's the surface mining, you need a lot of water to do your washing. You need a lot of. So as a country, we need to start thinking through. Do we really need surface mining? Well, let's help us, because let's compare the agricultural sector, because the two of them are competing for the same piece of land, agriculture and mining. So let us do as normal economic students will do, basic economics. You have one resources, land for agriculture, land for mining. Which of them will be your priority? Which of them make you more money? Remember agriculture, I think my brother Godwin said, the mining creates a lot of employment. Have we also discussed the people that it will displace from employment? Because a lot of people were using for agriculture. And once that you take that land, they're also losing employment. Have you also think on that angle? And agriculture, remember, employs about more than 60% of our labor force. Mining employs less than that. So for me, let us do that cost benefit of analysis, and you see whether it makes sense, economic sense to do these kind of things that you are doing.
You have brought up areas that we had previously not touched. The cost-benefit analysis, the opportunity cost of deciding to allow for surface mining, because I don't want us to limit the conversation to just small-scale miners, and that's where Mrs. Quantin, you come in. The point about surface mining. Now, the reason why I am asking this particular question is this: prior to the small-scale mining festering, we had some of these multinationals doing the surface mining, and yet the color of our water bodies then was not the same as today. It was much clearer than as we see today, though they were also doing the surface mining. So what has changed? Well,
that's what you think. But WACAM and Center for Environmental Impact Analysis did some research in the Takwa, Prestia, and Obuasi areas.
Okay.
And we sampled 250 water sources.
Okay.
Spring water, river, whatever, ponds, and also water that was provided when community people were deprived of their water sources because of mining. And we recognized that in the Takwa Prestia, that was then the 2008, it was one district. Out of the 110 water sources that we sampled, all of them were contaminated with heavy metals, meaning arsenic, cadmium, manganese, iron. It's if you talk about water pollution, it's not just the turbidity that you're talking about, but the heavy metals that are released and seep into the water sources from surface mining. I talked about the rock waste. The rock waste alone, if you mine this area of land, you need 3 times the same area to dump your rock waste on fertile lands, agricultural lands. And so when you start triggering the seepages and then the leaching into the atmosphere, you have within the earth crust all these chemicals, not only mercury. Mercury is just a minute aspect of it, but the arsenic, the manganese, cadmium are buried in the earth crust. And so once you expose them, you trigger the pollutants, the pollution of the environment. And so the pollution is not only from maybe the cyanide, seepage and spillages, but also the minerals that are buried in the earth crust. And that becomes injurious to the human life.
So if I get you, apart from the coloration, the fact that the water bodies have become brown, prior to that, the pollution was ongoing.
I'm not worried about the color of the water. I'm more concerned about the heavy
chemicals.
metals, because after those assessments, there was a follow-up assessment to link that to the health status of people living in the Tarkwa area. And it was established that 8 out of 100 people who lived in the Tarkwa area for about 70 years are prone to cancers.
Are prone to cancers?
Yes, are prone to cancers. And this research was vetted by the Ministry of Health Ethical Council before it came out. We've done a similar one in the Kenyan area. The results are almost the same. So the color of the water per se is not a problem, because you can drop some alum and things like that into the water and you have very clear water. But then what constitutes the chemical formation of the water, which is injurious to human health?
So have we lost it then when we are talking about the pollution of the water bodies? Because so far it looks like our emphasis is on the color of the water. We don't focus attention on...
No, apart from the color, we also have these chemicals embedded in the water.
Yeah, but we seldom talk about that.
We seldom talk about that, because even when you have a bottled water, it does not disclose the heavy metal content of the water that you are drinking. And so the assumption is that you can buy your water and drink. You are making a mistake. And so water pollution is something that should concern everybody in the country. The problem we're facing now is about the quantum of people who are drifting into the surface mining and then the illegal mining. And you can't blame people for that, because in Ghana there was a time that we used to have this underground mining. We had our government advertising for miners to come in, for foreign direct investment to come in. And because of the attraction for foreign direct investment, we needed to change our laws to accommodate them, to ensure that when they make the profits, and when my brother, the small-scale miner, was speaking, he was talking about profit, profitability, the cost-effective methods of extracting gold. And that becomes the reasoning behind this whole surface mining, because people think that if you go into agriculture, for instance, it's going to take you a long time before you start realizing your profit. They forget that the 25 acre that are given to small-scale miners, and with the technology that they are using today, you could mine the whole area in 1 week, maximum 1 week. You could finish mining the area. And so that will push you further into lands that you were not granted for mining purposes. And so the widespread illegal operations in the country as we see today. And because people are going into the alluvial, to what river beds to mine and things like that, it's a direct source of pollution. They mine, they wash, they do everything on the water, and then it flows downstream. And so yes, the turbidity would clear as you go downstream, but it doesn't mean that the elements that were left in the water have been purified. And you talked about the after mining, reclamation, rehabilitation of the place, and in some instances, some companies like Anglo Gold advocated for using pits for fish ponds and things like that. And these are very dangerous moves, because when a company tells you that, oh, I've detoxified the environment, it's always not true. And we saw this when we visited the Obuasi areas. We were going to here one day, and we saw some people falling in some pond that had been created to collect the sludge. We call that the chemical soup. And 3 young men fell into that. One died. I witnessed it. One died. One went unhurt. And then there was this 17-year-old boy who was this. The following day when we were passing, he was still in the pit mining. Apparently, they were collecting the sand and waste, then extracting, and they were getting something. And you could smell the cyanide when they opened the pipe for it to flow into this pit. So it's not completely true that total detoxification goes on before water is released into the environment. And I talked about pollution of groundwater. You see, when you dig a pit and then you pump sludge into it as containment ponds, it goes down into the groundwater. It seeps into the groundwater, and cleaning groundwater takes years, hundreds, thousands of years.
Because you go into the aquifer.
Exactly, and you cannot really control the flow of that kind of water. So there are many complications around surface mining, and yes, the small-scale miners are contributing their quota. The large-scale miners began the process, and they are still contributing to the pollution of the environment. And we are also talking about mining in whether productive or pristine environment. You destroy the vegetative material, you destroy habitats. And many of our water bodies are housed in some of these forests. And so the moment you destroy the forest, it means water stress. And it means destruction of the color and everything of the water. So the widespread pollution is because formerly Galamsey, small-scale mining, large-scale mining were concentrated in the western and then Ashanti regions. Now, the eastern region, the Brong-Ahafo region, the northern region, the upper east, the upper west, every part of our country is engaged in mining.
All right. We'll go for a very short break. When we come back, then the final question would be the steps we are taking, because we have gotten a lot of education. And I ask myself, do we really understand the gravity of the issue we are dealing with as a nation? Even regardless of the consultative dialogue that went on the past few weeks, did we really get the weight of the matter we are dealing with as a nation? We'll be right back. And you're welcome back. This is Fact Sheet live on eTV. Tonight we are talking about small-scale mining. We are trying to get an understanding of the processes that lead to the pollution of our water bodies, the destruction of our vegetation and forests. Equally, are we concerned about the land and its reclamation? And we're trying to understand the processes that lead to this. And so we're getting a lot of education. But quickly, have you heard about Christian Connect? Deep discussions on the biblical teachings, the latest news from the gospel music industry, Bible quizzes, updates on trending Christian movies are the order of the day on the Christian Connect show on eTVGhana every Sunday at 4 p.m. Hosted by seasoned journalist Paul Ankuma Kodie. The Christian Connect show will also highlight key places in the Bible and also give viewers and churches the opportunity to share their church news and event information. Tune in every Sunday and watch the Christian Connect show with Paul Ankuma Kodie only on eTVGhana and channel 177 and 815 on GoTV. eTVGhana, your world of quality entertainment. And if it's about entertainment, then it's all about season 2 of Gongon Bita. The hilarious Gongon Bita show is finally here, starting on the 1st of May 2021 on eTVGhana. Hosted by a teen comedian, Araba Atta, the Gongon Bita show is aired on Saturdays at 8 p.m., bringing you the latest juicy and hilarious trending stories from Ghana. I encourage you to make a date and follow the show at 8 p.m. on the 1st of May. On that note, I come back to the studio. We have just 6 minutes to round up our discussion. Time, waits for none of us. I wish we could delve deeper into the issue, but just granting, within a minute, I asked the question. The directive by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources that miners with prospecting license and then reconnaissance activities must halt, is that a cure for this problem we are discussing?
It is a first step for Ghana to think through the problems and then to make sure that we do it right. In fact, we cannot finish the talk on the surface mining and the replications and the challenges that confront us. I am saying that in the next 5 years, if you continue like this, we'll have a problem on hand. So that move for me is a first step, but that will not negate the fact that we need to take stock of what has happened in the past and also to have a broader discussion.
But did the consultative dialogue not suffice?
It was the first step, and it was stated over there that they were going to replicate this dialogue in the districts and then the regions and what have you. And you should go even deeper into the communities, because many people would have to know that we are destroying our environment. If you take, for instance, an acre of land and give it to a farmer, that farmer is going to keep the land for years and could hand over that land to the children and then grandchildren. Surface mining, you give the person 25 acres. Large-scale mining, you give the company 200 acres of land, and it's destroyed forever. So these are things that people should know. Our water bodies are getting destroyed. The cost is so high that Ghana cannot use taxpayers' money to address some of these problems. So we need to continuously talk about some of these things. It's the first step.
Thank you very much. Let me come to my Zoom, conversation and speak to Godwin. Godwin, the directive by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Abu Jinapo, do you agree with him? Is that what is going to solve the problem under a minute?
No, under a minute. I wanted to respond to some two issues that came up in terms of mercury being used to polish gold. We don't use the mercury to polish the gold, but to treat, we use it as a chemical that attracts the mercury to itself, to the gold to itself, to form what we call the amalgam. We never use mercury to polish gold. And it's not every scale miner that uses mercury. We have those who work without mercury. Number two, you cannot use 1 week to mine 25 acre land. No matter how mechanized you are, you cannot use 1 week to. So we should state it as it is. And when it comes to comparing agriculture and mining, we need both. Look, we are talking about infrastructure development. When you look at your studios, most of the things that you are using there, you need to mine to get it. We are talking about getting our roads done. We need aggregates for that. We want cement for construction. We need to go back to the environment to get it. So what we need to do is to ensure that we mine and mine in a sustainable way. Else, then we have to live like the way the Amazons live. When you go to their place, they don't even cut a tree. They don't have any block. They don't have even clay to build their homes. There's no road. They gather. They don't even farm. But when we want to live in cities, when we want to travel in our planes, when we want to use our vehicles, we need to go to environment and get these raw materials and process them to come in. So the comparison between agric and mining is something that can be done, but at the end of the day, we need both. So we need to plan it properly.
Under 30 seconds, I'll be grateful. Our time is far spent.
The dialogue, we all came together, we discussed, and then we brought this communique. For the minister banning, small-scale mining is not done in forest reserve. The law doesn't allow anyone. Anyone who is doing this is illegal mining. And it's a first step, and we give the minister time up for that. But we to ensure that we all help him to implement the strategies that we have, because it's going to be a very tough time for him, because you have so many people who are involved, and getting it done will not be easy.
All right, Godwin, thank you. Elvis, if you're there, we run up our discussion under a minute, if you can make that for me.
We need both the gold and the and agriculture. That's the reason why we need to encourage deep mining, so that you can dig deep, you get your gold, and we can also get a surface of the land for agricultural purposes. And I also think, I like the idea of the consultative meeting, but the question that we need to ask is, would we have the political will, especially when it's getting to the election period? But we realized at the beginning the ban was successful, but when we're getting to the election period, the politicians were not having the balls to see it through. And I think both MPP and NDC, all the political divides, should see this one as a social canker. Ghana is heading towards a ditch, which we should not be deeper, and we should not be politicizing these issues around Galamsey, because it's an issue of life and death, actually.
All right. for joining me tonight. Elvis Opomenza is Program Officer for the Civic Response. So did Mrs. Hannah Owusu Quantin also join me, Associate Executive Director for Wakam, and Godwin Ama, who is the General Secretary for the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners, on tonight's conversation about understanding the mining sector from the perspective of key stakeholders who have been following the activities of these miners. I hope you got educated and informed tonight. I did, and I wish you a pleasant evening. Tomorrow there will be a repeat broadcast of this program on eTV at 10. Do make a date.